Thank you very much indeed. Welcome back. Now, as part of her final appeal to Tory members, Liz Truss suggested scrapping smart motorways. Now, I want you to listen to this excerpt from a 999 call from a family who broke down on one. And just a warning, some of you might find this distressing.
I'm stuck in the middle of the M6. My car's broken down. I've passed Knutsford. I'm going northbound. Got the hazards on. What else can I do? Because I've got a family of 5 in the car.
Okay, don't worry. And you say there's 5 people in the car?
Yeah, oh.
Hello? Hello?
Unbelievable. Thankfully, I have to tell you, nobody was killed in that accident. But joining me now is Claire Mercer, who has campaigned so strongly for smart motorways to be scrapped since her husband, Jason, was tragically killed on the M1. Claire, thank you so much indeed for joining us on Uncensored. Tell us your story, if you'd be so kind.
Jason had what should have just been a minor incident on the motorway on the way to work one morning. Him and another motorist, minor bump. But where it happened was a sign saying no hard shoulder for 4 miles. It didn't give any other information. They couldn't get their vehicles out of the live running lane because of the crash barrier, and they couldn't get over the crash barrier because of a 30-foot drop onto the road below. So they were hemmed in, basically. They were stood in a live lane with their vehicles that they couldn't get out of a live lane, and a HGV hit them and killed them instantly.
For your loss, I'm so sorry. When you, who has fought so long to have this ridiculous system cancelled, you must be delighted to hear that the favourite to be the next Prime Minister wants to scrap them. What's your response to that?
Yes, it's good to hear. I don't trust the word of somebody that is campaigning for a job that they really, really want. You know, I don't believe they're going to do everything they say they're going to do. But it's interesting that it's been picked up by both candidates as a vote-winning bargaining chip. What hurt was her dismissing it as an experiment. The smart motorways experiment has failed. You know, our loved ones got killed in that experiment. You know, do they really have to experiment with people's lives? It's interesting that it's been picked up as a vote winner.
Well, you know, it's interesting, and you have obviously real emotional interest in this story, but you're right. It's interesting how many people are questioning the sorts of things that are being said repeatedly by the candidates. But your desire and your wish is that smart motorways should be cancelled forthwith, right?
Yes, yep. I mean, they can call it what they like. They can. There's a lot about saving face and a lot about excusing the money they've already spent on this failure. But I don't care what you call it. We just need a hard shoulder on every single motorway.
Claire, thank you for now. I'm joined by Mike Rawson, former road traffic cop, and Steve Berry, former Top Gear presenter. Help me out, Mike. These are ridiculous things, smart motorways, aren't they?
They're almost unbelievable, Jeremy. When you think, since 1959, we built these motorways, we've always had a hard shoulder. It's the most important safety feature on a high-speed road. And the planners in 1959, when they built the M1 between London and Birmingham, they realised there are no junctions, no roundabouts, no traffic lights, no farm vehicles, no cyclists, no pedestrians. What is there for the motorist to do? And the biggest danger is the stopped vehicle in the live lane. That's why they spent the money on putting in hard shoulders, because it's a major safety feature. But Jeremy, nobody claims that it's 100% safe environment. But I tell you one thing, it's a jolly sight safer than being stopped in the path of a 40-ton Arctic doing 56 miles an hour.
Steve, I freely admit, you know, when I started this 5 weeks ago, I'm delighted to say I've learnt an awful lot. This is ludicrous, man. How are people...
How did anybody ever think...
Who sat down and went... You listen to that woman's story. Oh, do you know, it's a really good idea. If you break down, there's nowhere to go. You are a sitting duck.
Yeah. How did anyone ever think it was... I had, about 6 months ago, you probably haven't spent much time on the hard shoulder, in the swanky motors that you float about in. But
Honestly.
I had a bit of a problem in my big old Citroen. I was batting along, flat tyre. Now, any car, no matter how old or young or reliable or unreliable, can catch a flat. I had time to get over onto the hard shoulder, then get out of the vehicle as they advise you to do. When they're telling you, on one hand, to get out of the vehicle on the hard shoulder and get over the Armco onto the other side, but they're also saying, oh, yeah, smart motorways are the future. Well, they're the opposite ends of the safety spectrum.
So well, you've talked about speed limits. What is the future? I mean, we all agree, quite patently, listening to her story and listening to that terrible, terrible audio, that there need to be hard shoulders for people.
Absolutely.
What, do people need to drive better? What's the answer? What's this speed limit debate?
Well, we've had a speed limit in this country since 1965. When it was brought in as a temporary measure, a bit like they brought in income tax as a temporary measure, it's still with us. Nearly 60 years later. The 70-mile-an-hour speed limit's as old as me and you, mate. 1965.
You think we should go faster?
Well, think about the cars that came out in 65. A Wolseley 1100, a Triumph 1300 and the Peel Trident, which is like a Kinder Egg on wheels. They would struggle, those three cars, to do 70 miles an hour. And think about the advances, not just in technology, but in safety. Back then, cross-ply tyres, drum brakes and the structural integrity of a brown paper bag with a damp bottom. Now, every family car is absolutely solid as a rock, safe as out.
Tell that story about you in Germany when you're on the Autobahn quickly.
Well, everybody knows that in Germany, the Autobahns are unrestricted. And when
Do they have more accidents? Because...
No, they have, if you take it as accidents per mile, or kilometre as they prefer, which is the only way to do it, Germany and the UK have a very similar record when it comes to road traffic accidents. I went out there to test a BMW Superbike, got it on the Autobahn. I thought, I wonder if this is speed restricted. Got it up to 155 miles an hour and saw the flashing lights and heard the siren and thought, oh, I'm getting pulled. Yeah, I was getting pulled for going too slow in the fast lane.
155 miles an hour?
Yeah, because as he was lecturing me on the hard shoulder, and they do have hard shoulders, a Porsche came past doing 175.
Well, we all agree there should be a hard shoulder. Another thing Liz Truss has said, she will axe the motorway speed limit. What's your response to that as an ex-traffic cop? You've heard what Steve has said. Cars have changed. People need to move on. What's your view?
Steve is quite right about cars. Survivability in vehicles today is incredible compared to years ago. Seatbelts, airbags, side impact bars have made, you know, surviving hugely different to how it used to be. But I'm sorry, the standard of driving today, partly because there's little or no police enforcement anymore.
Well, they're too busy doing the Macarena.
OK, we've got smart motorways, put signs up, 60 on the inside lane where all the trucks can only do 60, 90 in the middle, unrestricted in the
I would like to say something. You're an ex-traffic cop, you're a Top Gear presenter, you'll just laugh at me. I think that as many people cause accidents on motorways by going slow in the middle lane and people have to weave in and weave out. I'm with him. I don't think the standard of driving is anywhere near what it used to be. I mean, you can...
a car does it for you, Jeremy.
That worries me as well. You can buy an electric car that you don't have to drive.
Just got a new Audi and drove that. Not bought it, but borrowed it as a press car. It's got lane finder, or minder as they call it, so it stays in its lane. It's got proximity sensors that keep it a safe distance from the car in front. The thing was even warning me if it thought cars coming up behind me or either the left or the right...
So you would raise speed limits, yes? You would cancel smart motorways because we all agree the lack of a hard shoulder is ludicrous. And what would you increase the speed limit to?
Like I said, a variable. Trucks can only do 60.
Yeah.
60 in the inside lane, 90 in the middle lane, unrestricted in the outside lane. Come on.
Last word from you, Mike.
Well, I'm afraid we have a 70 limit for a reason. Now, most people, or many people, will go up to 80. I think if we raise it to 80, they'll do 90. Now, that is fast. And yes, for Steve and for lots of drivers who are very good and anticipate and they use their mirrors, that's fine. But sadly, we've got so many poor drivers on the road. Just saving a few minutes on the journey is going to cost a few lives, and I'm all for safety.
Listen, guys, thank you so much indeed. Can I say a big thank you as well to Claire Mercer for joining us and sharing her story. Also, Steve Berry there and Mike Rawson. That is a story that will go on and on, but I don't think anybody watching this would not think that smart motorways should be scrapped. Those horrendous stories, they need to be back. Right, next and Uncensored. By God, I think he's got it.